Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The Hollywood Trade Publications just released a pretty damaging report on the dire circumstances going on at Disney, and the headline is they've been scrambling to find a way to get young male audiences interested in their movies and TV shows again, meaning that they've lost the young male audience, which they define as men ages 13 to 28, basically Gen Z, saying that male kids do not care about anything Disney-related right now, which includes Marvel, Star Wars, their other core brands. Some of the details of this report will sound familiar. A lot of the problems Disney is having right now aren't totally unique to them. DC was having the same types of problems the past few years. James Gunn is in the process of trying to reverse that damage. Probably the most ironic thing about all this is that it's a self-inflicted wound. It's something that they did to themselves. Some of the biggest brands, the biggest IP in the world, and suddenly their youngest audiences who they depend on so much in the past, used to be their biggest supporters the past 20 years, suddenly start to abandon them. We're all thinking this could have been avoided to a certain degree. So we'll break it all down and what Disney specifically is trying to do now, along with other major studios, to fix that problem. You remember, all Hollywood studios, not just Disney, but all Hollywood studios, really only care about earning money. So when that is threatened, as it is right now so fundamentally, all they do is just go into survival mode to try and fix that. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. Like I said, they're making big moves behind the scenes to fix a lot of these big problems. It will be fascinating to see it all go down, to live through all this. Because we have Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars coming up, seem like the biggest tentpoles that Marvel could possibly be making over at Disney. A lot of you ask, what happens if those go badly? Like, what happens if Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars lose money? What is the worst case scenario for them? What do they do if things continue to go worse and worse and worse? Well, you've actually seen the worst case scenario, and it actually happened already with Star Wars. Disney CEO Bob Iger basically turned off the infinite money spigot going to Star Wars, so they pulled way back on the amount of stuff that they release. Like, first new movie, The Mandalorian Grogu, that they're releasing next year in 7 years since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. There are no new live-action TV shows that they've announced after Ahsoka Season 2 next year. Maybe they'll eventually release more live-action stuff, but a vastly reduced amount. It's basically the exact same story at Marvel behind the scenes. Kevin Feige did a secret Comic-Con meeting with a bunch of other journalists. That was his big Marvel Phase 7 panel where he explained Marvel's plan to fix all this damage and turn the ship around. Just reading this Variety article, it says, Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty aren't the only ones looking for a prince. Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men defined here as sources aged 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. This is the same Disney whose multi-billion-dollar content engines, Marvel and Lucasfilm, as in Star Wars, have sated men of all ages over almost 2 decades since the company acquired them. The sources say Disney has been seeking new IP in pitches such as splashy global adventures and treasure hunts, as well as seasonal fare like films for the Halloween corridor. The calls come as the Star Wars machine struggles to produce any film project, and the superhero genre, Marvel, sheds audiences by the minute, meaning that Marvel is shedding their audience over time very quickly. So the whole idea is the Gen Z audience, like the younger audience who has money to burn, they're looking to get back. What happened? Why did they turn away from the brands? Marvel, Star Wars, DC movies also kind of had this to a certain effect too. What is the self-inflicted wound here that the Hollywood studios did to themselves to hurt things so badly? It's a relatively simple problem with a couple different parts to it. It's not very complicated. We'll use comic book movies, for example, just because Marvel is so much bigger and we have the DC stuff too. They had the same type of problem. Star Wars is just part of that problem too. But you remember, we're talking about an unprecedented 20-plus year run where it seemed like comic book movies ruled the world. 2018, 2019, the back-to-back Avengers years for Infinity War and Endgame are unparalleled. But one of the first big things that happened that went wrong for all of them is that they all got greedy. Very old, very familiar problem. Nothing new about this. Each of the studios tried to start releasing way too many movies, way too many TV shows in a shorter amount of time. Most people talk about the pandemic era when they're talking about this, the 2020 to 2022 period, where just everybody was just shoveling stuff out and there was just terrible quality control on everything. So not just the younger Gen Z audiences, but everybody in general just started to pull way back. Like, maybe we don't need to see every single thing that comes out because there's so much stuff. Both Kevin Feige and James Gunn talked about this separately. Similar problems at Marvel and DC. There were just much bigger things happening at Marvel because the brand is so much bigger. They were outputting so much more stuff, so many more movies and TV shows. What wound up happening when those audiences started pulling way back, like Gen Z in particular, because this article is mostly about the Gen Z audience, they turned to other types of movies and TV shows. Like basically kids saying that I don't want to watch the same thing that my older brother or my older sister or my father or my mother is watching. I'm going to go find my own thing to enjoy. Probably one of the biggest places that we've seen them all go the past couple of years, you've actually seen this in all the box office reports, are video game movies and TV shows. If comic book movies ruled the last 20 years, it seems like the video game movies and TV shows are on the verge of taking over popular culture. Both the Minecraft movie and Super Mario Bros. Earned over $1 billion, and you could argue that neither of those movies was perfect, but they still earned over $1 billion. Neither of those movies was made or owned by Disney. There are a couple things that they do have the rights to, but a lot of the rights are tied up with a bunch of other rights holders, so it gets way more complicated behind the scenes, which is why you haven't seen a ton of video game-related movies and TV shows from Disney, also because they've relied so heavily on Marvel and Star Wars to carry that burden. And because they relied on them too heavily, no big surprise that younger audiences started to get tired of it and pull back and move to other greener pastures, other video game-related pastures. You could also say that anime is responsible for some of this too, in that anime has become way more mainstream in the last 10 years. Something that Disney also doesn't have a lot of experience with outside of distributing a lot of classic Ghibli films or trying to do something like Star Wars Visions on a very limited basis. They don't really control a lot of big anime IP, and you don't see them releasing a bunch of really big anime movies. China's Neizha 2 animated movie just earned over $2.2 billion, just to give you an idea. Like, Disney wants some of that money. Recently, CEO Bob Iger confirmed pretty much all this on an earnings call, saying that the film group won't favor existing IP, like the stuff that they already have access to, Marvel and Star Wars, over original material. The priority, Iger said, is to put out great movies, meaning that they put out the call to try and reach other things that they haven't tried before, namely video game-related stuff, horror movies. They hired one of the producers that was responsible for the Sonic movies and a couple other big horror movies recently. Basically, Disney's starting to act more like a regular movie studio and less like a content factory for Marvel and Star Wars, just cranking stuff out ad nauseum.
Streaming my colonoscopy and tell you it's Agatha all along.
Oh, please don't make me think about that nice lady rooting around in there.
You're thinking about it, right?
Damn.
One of the other biggest problems that a lot of people have not been talking about, especially with shrinking box office numbers, is the China problem. This wasn't just a Disney, Marvel, Star Wars related problem. This happened to a lot of different studios during the 2010s. What a lot of people don't realize is that China typically only allows a certain small number of American or other international films into China per year. And during the 2010s, there was a brief period, like very brief period, when Chinese audiences were just fascinated by American movies. It basically provided an extra $200 to $300 million on the grosses of big comic book movies from Marvel, from DC, from other big movie studios in America. This also wound up happening to a lesser degree with Russia, and recently Russia closed off because of the war with Ukraine. Like, people aren't releasing movies in Russia in the same way. So the idea is that during the 2010s, a lot of people's box office numbers, Marvel, DC, everybody else, got inflated significantly because of these extra dollars coming from China and from Russia. Recently, it seems like Chinese audiences do not care about American films anymore, so boom, that money spigot just got turned off. So what's actually happening is that movie box office grosses are actually resetting to more what they used to look like before that 2010s period, like peak Marvel period. This isn't catastrophic. All it means is that Marvel, DC, other big movie studios can't be making movies that cost $200, $300, $400 million to make because they have to earn so much money just to be profitable. It means that everybody has to find ways to reduce the budgets of all their movies. Probably the best example of this recently is the Fantastic Four movie, which is slated to earn between $500, $600 million finally. Like, we'll see what the actual final number winds up being, but it wound up being way less than people expected, even though critically and the audiences seemed like they both loved the movie. So if everybody loves Fantastic Four, but it doesn't earn as much money as people expected, how do you fix that problem? You just reduce the budget so it doesn't need to earn that much money to turn a profit. Kevin Feige specifically addressed this problem during his big Marvel Phase 7 panel a couple weeks ago. It's part of their larger plan to fix everything, in Marvel specifically, but it's also a Star Wars problem. It's also a problem of other big movie studios. Everybody is trying to find ways to shrink their budgets back down to what they used to be like instead of what happened during the 2010s when things just got inflated to crazy, crazy numbers. Marvel's way of doing this with the new X-Men reboot movie they're doing after Secret Wars is to mostly cast a group of younger, unknown actors so they don't bring a lot of baggage with them, namely giant contracts like Robert Downey Jr. size contracts.
Oh, hi.
It's been reported that he's being paid over $100 million for both Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. That really drives the budget of your movie up when you have to pay one of your stars that much money. When it comes to losing the younger Gen Z audience, one of the last biggest problems that Marvel specifically had, DC kind of had this problem, but Marvel to a bigger degree, was there started to be so much stuff for them to keep up on in order to know what was happening in present day. So when a new movie comes out, do you have to watch 20 other, 30 other movies just to understand what's happening in the movie? They started to have a problem onboarding brand new fans. Usually the easiest way that Hollywood in general has come to fix that problem is reboot things over time. You've seen all the Spider-Man movies, all the different versions of Spider-Man over the years. They do it way quicker. Marvel is just going to be doing it with Avengers Secret Wars. We will see what Marvel's version of that winds up looking like. It won't be quite as hard of a reboot as, say, the Spider-Man films were. And they eventually did bring those other versions of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, back and kind of recanonize things. But on screen, largely, you're going to see the fruits of all this reboot and resetting labor and them turning the ship around, casting younger actors, unknowns, with the brand new X-Men film, which is supposed to come out in 2028. Until we get there, the stopgap measure that Marvel has executed to fix this problem at Disney, like Disney fixing problems, is to pull way back on releases. Like, remember what happened to Doctor Strange 3? Wasn't that movie supposed to come out? Not anymore. This is why the only movie coming out before Avengers Doomsday is Spider-Man Brand New Day, pretty much a guaranteed hit for Marvel because Spider-Man is so popular. What you'll probably see over the next several years is Marvel slowly get back to the same level of output that they had during Marvel Phase 1 with like a couple shows per year and a couple movies per year, and that's it. So even though it seems like everything is crashed and burned at Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, over at DC, is that it's more of a resetting to what things used to be like before it got real crazy and inflated the last 10 to 20 years. Also, the idea that Disney really wants to get their hands in that money pie that is video game movies and TV shows. Previously, their way of fixing the problem of wanting young male audiences was to buy other brands. Like they bought Star Wars, they bought Marvel back in the 2000s, in the 2010s. They can't really keep doing that just because it's so much money. But do not be surprised if you see Disney releasing a video game-related big IP splashy movie at some point in the next several years. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below. Speaking of other completely different, really cool new things, my Alien Earth Episode 4 video will post this week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. I just did a big Avengers Doomsday video. There's a bunch of stuff that came out from the set. Click here for that, and click here for my new Alien Earth episode videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.